You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to the program. I'm joined now by State Senator Breanne Davis, Republican of Russellville. Always good to see you.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I teased before our segment that this is going to be the education session. Is it going to be the education session or the education in prison session? What do you think what's going to be the biggest driver?
Well, I think there's several things that are important to our governor-elect and to our legislature, education certainly being at the top of that list.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about where some things may go there. Let's begin first with the ongoing debate between teacher pay, raising those minimum salaries up, finding a way to bonus some of the teachers that are there. We're in competition with other states. We're losing teachers out of the workforce. I mean, we got problems. What do you think is going to be the most pragmatic solution that you think will be addressed?
I think there's a lot that we need to look at. We know that currently in the matrix, we give school districts upwards of $73,000 a year towards base salary, insurance, benefits for teachers, but there's no enforcement of that. It's funding, it's a funding matrix and directive, but not a spending directive. And so I think we need to look at that. I also think we need to see what we can do to pay our teachers competitively. I mean, nobody argues that our teachers shouldn't be paid more. We all know how hard they work. And we need to look at compensating them correctly for that work. That
did not get done in the special session that you guys had just a few months ago. Why will the timing be right for it to be done now? Because you're through the adequacy study, or?
Yeah, because we're through the adequacy study, and then also just because we're looking at education as a whole, and so making policy decisions. And I just think putting all of it together, waiting was the right thing to do, and we can understand where our budget's at, where we can spend money, where we can pull money from, what we need to mandate, all those different things, and I think it'll be very comprehensive in terms of education reform.
Do you hear a number for a minimum salary? Do you hear a number for an average salary that's being discussed out there?
I think that the House is having their own conversations, the Senate's sort of having their own conversations.
What's the Senate talking about there?
We're just looking at ways that we can ensure teachers are paid adequately. So what that ends up ultimately looking like, I don't have the answers for that yet, and none of us do. It's something that we're working on together, but I certainly think that we'll see that addressed come January.
All right. Another thing that is going to be a big priority for the governor-elect is reading improvement. I think she wants that to be a cornerstone of her education platform there. Tell me why you think we're failing where we're failing now, and what is going to be proposed that you think will make a difference?
You know, right now, around 31% of our fourth graders are reading proficiently. And obviously that's failing. We're failing our students. And we have arguments all the time on, is it programs, what's happening in the classroom? And what I know is that we consistently ask our teachers to work harder year after year. We put more regulation on them, the federal government, the state government. We constantly are asking them to do more in the classroom. And we're not really empowering our teachers to work smarter. We're burdening them with a lot of things they shouldn't be burdened with, and it stops them from being able to teach the way they need to teach in the classroom. So I think just really looking at how we can help our teachers work smarter by removing regulations from them and empowering them in the classroom to teach those kids, and that's how we'll change reading scores.
Still, some of those regulations are required because you got to have some sort of standards out there. You got to have some sort of proof that they're, meeting a certain level of criteria. So do you take that responsibility and put it into somebody else's responsibility burden? I mean, where do you find that solution to you're not going to get rid of some of those regulations, I think is the point that I'm making.
Yeah.
So do you find someone else to deal with the regulatory aspect of it to let the teachers teach, or do you put another person in the classroom specifically for reading?
I think that we look at ways that we can support teachers and make sure they're all trained in the science of reading. It's something we've been talking about for the last several years, of course. But I think there's a lot of different things that we can be doing, and we'll see how those flesh out over time and how they actually end up in the bill. I just know all options are being looked at for ways that we can empower our teachers.
Tell me what some of those options might be. Just tell me what's being discussed. I mean, I hear things here and there, but I mean, you're in the middle of some of those conversations. So what are some ideas that are being proposed?
Well, I think generally speaking, we're looking at ways that we're looking to ensure that all teachers are trained in the science of reading, like I said, and how can we focus on reading in K through 3, or really pre-K through 3,
right,
and ensure that they are on track to read proficiently. Because the truth is, no matter what else is going on, if students cannot read proficiently by the time they leave the 3rd grade, we know that it is a determinant for their educational success and their lifelong success. So just focusing resources there, and that looks a lot of different ways. And
give me an example or two.
Well, I mean, I think having more literacy coaches maybe to support our teachers where they need it. And so that's one thing that's very general. There's a lot of ways to flesh that out and see what that looks like for school districts and for the classroom. But I think just making sure our teachers have that support in helping their kids read proficiently.
Senate President-elect Bart Hester was on the show a few weeks ago, made a comment that stirred a little controversy there. He said we need to cut out arts, we need to cut out history, science, band, extracurricular activities, sports, until they can read. I don't know if a lot of that's going on before the 3rd grade, but do you think that he was just being hyperbolic there in terms of we're going to focus on reading, or do you think he really does want to see some of those other things cut out?
Well, I think Senator Hester is making a point very strongly, which is that, there's lots of things going on and some of that stuff is happening in elementary school, and those things are important. We want well-rounded students, but if students can't read, then long-term it's impacting their success in life. So I think his point is that we are failing kids right now in Arkansas. 31% of our kids in 4th grade enter 4th grade reading proficiently. That's a problem. We are failing as policymakers. We are failing the children in the state of Arkansas. And so, while his point, he just cuts to the chase of it, right? We make jokes all the time, or not jokes, but just when we talk about what school districts look like. I mean, I was on the Russellville School Board for 9 years. A lot of school districts have indoor practice facilities. They've got turf on their football fields. They've got nice press boxes, but their kids can't read. And that's a problem. Yeah. So we've got to address that as hard as we can.
Representative Bruce Cozart, who's been the chair of the House Committee, was on a couple of weeks ago as well, said that he thinks it's time to review the whole funding matrix as a whole. Maybe look at what has come out of Lakeview and progressed over the last couple of decades. Are you an advocate for that? Do you think that it's time to rethink how we fund schools?
I think that is an interesting conversation, and I think it's always good to reevaluate the way that we're doing things when we've been doing it for, a couple decades. I think it's important to do that. I've heard talk of that. I don't know if that's something that's going to go on this session, if it's going to be after session, or if it's something we'll end up doing at all. But I certainly think it's a conversation worth having.
School choice, what does that mean? I know it's going to be a hot topic of debate. Does that mean we're going to allow for more looser restrictions for charter schools? Does it mean more virtual schools? Does it mean the money follows students from public schools to somewhere else? Does it mean more public school competition? I want to know what your definition of school choice is.
Well, we currently have school choice in Arkansas, right? It depends on your zip code, where you live, and if you have money to pay for your kids to go to a private school, and depending where you live, if that's available to you. So really what it's about is parent empowerment, and that's letting all kids across the state have the option for the best education for them. So what it means to me is expanding it for parental empowerment for those parents to make choices for their students. It shouldn't matter what your zip code is or how much money you have for you to be able to get a good education for your kid.
Give me an idea of a type of piece of legislation that's going to be filed that will address this school choice issue that will be different from where we are today.
Well, I think, like I said, right now it's it's a little more narrow on what people can use as far as funding to send their kids to a private school, right? So I think expanding that to see that it covers all students, that funding is available for all students to be able to choose if they want to stay in their public school, if they want to go to a private school, a charter school, if they want to homeschool. It's just widening who that's available to, and instead of it being a narrow group of students, it's every student across the state of Arkansas.
So the state of Arkansas spends a little over $7,000 from the state for public schools on average for students. Should that money be allowed to move to those different options that you're talking about? Is that the center of the debate?
Yeah, I think that is the center of the debate, allowing parents to be empowered to make the best choices for their kids.
Is that cash? Is that a tax credit? I mean, how do you do that and not bankrupt the public schools? You know, I mean, for instance, if I'm in Russellville, like where you would be, and I decide I want to go do homeschooling virtually, and I've got, 200 kids want to do that. That's 200 kids coming out of the Russellville School District. That has a funding impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it does, and we already have probably a little bit more than that in the Russellville School District homeschooling. So that's something that we're already facing, we're already accustomed to. We're not handing cash out, to parents or anything like that. But I think there is a way to do it, and it looks different. Different models look a little bit different on how we have money follow students and let them make those best educational choices for themselves.
Is it a matter of it will happen or it might happen?
Well, since I'm just one of 135, I can't say that it will happen because I'm just one vote,
What's
one
your
person.
best guess,
But I certainly think that it will happen. I think we have a very strong governor-elect in Sarah Sanders, and this is her #1 priority. This is something she campaigned on. The people of Arkansas said that they wanted to see parent empowerment when it comes to education choices for their kids. And so I dare anyone to go against her. I don't think it'll end well.
We'll see about that. All right, last question for you. Who's going to be the next education secretary? Will it be the existing one or will it be a different one?
I don't know. I literally do not have any answers on that, and I have no insight. So.
All right, just thought I'd ask while I had you here. All right, Senator Breanne Davis,
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to working with you in the session. So we're back with more after this.